maybe I go first with the lady, Lucienne. Can you tell us something like, is there a rapid development in this industry? What can you see in comparison to last time? What is the improvement, so to say?
To a year ago, you mean?
Yes, to a year ago.
The main difference, I would say, I see more suppliers of the Hyperloop. It's not just Hyperloop developers, more suppliers. Tata Steel is present over here, had the keynotes, ArcelorMittal, POSCO. I see several other components here. So the supply is getting involved. It's good. There are customers over here. They're getting somewhere.
Erik, is the same for you, or do you see other players in the field?
I would really recognize the same. So let's say more and more component deliverers to really building up the whole ecosystem are there, because last time we were really discussing about passenger and cargo transportation, so how to make it really happen. But now we all recognize, okay, that's more than just a tube in the pot, so there are several more topics to come, and more companies have to join such an ecosystem, and that is really the progress that we also see. Still, coming from the demand side, it's too slow, and we want to have it right now, maybe already yesterday. But yeah, that's one big challenge about regulations, about demands, and that all bringing together.
You and me talked earlier about the whole ecosystem, and from what I'm understanding about your job is basically you're not in this ecosystem. You are about transportation, everything else, but rail. But Hyperloop is an alternative for you. When do you see that happening, and when do you see it happening with your company?
So my crystal ball?
Yes, your crystal ball.
As I said, hopefully as fast as possible, because we would really need such a system, such a technology right now. Because we are running out of capacity. We have no ocean freight capacity left, no air freight capacity. Rail is completely full. Truck drivers are getting too old. So we have an average age of a German truck driver is 58. So we're really running out of people, running out of stuff. We need another transport mode because the existing ones are completely full. And of course, I'm not talking about short distances. When I'm talking about Hyperloop or thinking about Hyperloop, then it's always about long distance, as long as possible, as much volume, as much cargo, because I'm not in passenger transport. I still believe people will be first, because might be a person might be more willing to pay for speed than a cargo shipment. But nevertheless, if the system and the network would be there, we would be really happy to use it, because it's really bringing an additional value if the price is fitting.
And you are talking from a European perspective, not just because you said truck drivers in Germany, but it is actually a European issue.
Worldwide.
That's the same. Andrés, you have been working in so many countries. I guess it's the same all over.
Yeah, I think that is worldwide, no? But it's not only about the shortage of truck drivers, it's also about the situation in the ports, the small capacity of the ports to continue growing, the landlocked, the problems that they have of contamination, also the problems that they have of traffic jams around the cities, the areas that they are covering. So I think that in general, and you know, this is music for our ears, no? What he's saying, no? And again, I think that you were asking before, no? What is the big difference? I think that the big difference between this and where we were in the past is about the industry, no? The customers. The customers, first, the legacy transportation industry is really starting to endorse the Hyperloop concept. But second, and very important, so with the suppliers and everybody, you know, around, but second and very important, we have more and more customers understanding that this is a need. This is not something that is good to go, it's a need.
Alix, we didn't hear yet from you today. Can I give the audience an understanding? Who is your customer?
Well, I represent the SNCF Group, which means that our customers are large company, industry, or whatever needs to load anything. Well, if I have to come back to the last session, I would say we talk about, that's what I remember, text on Hyperloop Dream. And today I'd like to keep 4 keywords that I've heard today, which show the difference. The first one is customer needs, which was not in the debate last time. Then we heard about business case, proof of concept, and one last thing, which is interoperability, which is very important, because I would like to avoid that Hyperloop look like what we know in the rail industry today, with to go from Poland to Portugal, maybe 4 different machines, 5 drivers, 5 licenses, and I don't remember how many voltage or whatever. So please build something that could be used from one side to the other side of Europe without any change or whatever, just because somebody developed something and somebody developed something different, and we, as operator, have to make the link between those two systems.
Carlo, from a EU body perspective, because everybody is talking about regulations and interoperability, what would you need from a EU body perspective to help? Like, what's the input that you need to help?
Well, the input is, first of all, is coming from the fact that the call we publish and we try to bring the sector together is exactly the first, by itself, an input to the sector to support us in the exercise. We work with the Commission, and the work we are doing with the Commission is exactly to ask all the promoter, all the industry, to start to look at which will be, if you want to achieve the interoperability, which is the system that we need to look at. So we can develop standards and regulatory framework that is based on performance-oriented results, so defining the quality of safety, the quality, and so on. You define all the criteria that are not necessarily driven always by technology, but at a certain point of time, we need to face the reality. We are talking about the tube with a certain dimension, with certain vehicle, and certain pressure of air at the end. And we need to have, if you want to have a full interoperable system, I totally agree, because coming from the rail experience, I think we know what we are talking about. This meaning that we need to be able to have this network built without transshipments, so without transferring stuff or interrupting or breaking. Today, one of the problems of rail is not that the speed is too low. The problem is that the speed goes low because the train has to stop the border to change the loco, to change the driver, and so on and so on. And all the package comes. So I think the expectation that we have, the strong expectation we have, is at a certain point of time, we are talking about a system, and the system should converge towards one system. Or we will not have interoperability, we'll have other discussion, maybe in this respect. But I think this is the evolution that is to go from the sector. And what Lucienne, you were saying, so what the changes you saw are really the changing going towards the system approach.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of questions here, but I want to open for the audience. We can all discuss together, so if you have questions, we have another microphone there. You are welcome to raise your questions or whisper them in my ear because you don't want to stand up. Mars, please. Yeah.
I'd like to open the discussion about the freight container versus the typical sizes used for time-critical goods. Andrés, you also talked today about the container mover versus the Hyperloop that has a smaller size. Yeah, what the thoughts are on the panelists on the bigger size you need to transport containers versus what you would typically need for the time-critical goods that are not always in containers.
Yeah. I guess it's a question for everybody, right? So.
Yeah. Answering to you, I think that there is a business case for each of the two applications, or at least that is how we see it. We all have read today talking about if a container is in the water during 2 weeks, why, then you want to move it very fast, no? But that's ridiculous because at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is that the container is not in the water during 2 weeks, that the container comes directly without that, without having to be in the water for 2 weeks. I think that we have to do economical analysis of the situations. If you have to load and unload the goods, that is going to cost you around 400 euros. Moving a truck, 400 kilometers is going to cost you around that. So, it's about cost. It's about how do you move this. So I think that there is definitely an opportunity for moving containers, but it's also true that there is an opportunity for mixed use, okay? And of course, the fact that for moving the containers inside the Hyperloop, you are going to need a bigger infrastructure is also a limitation factor. So again, I think that depending on the scenario that you are going to see, one option or other options are going to be more logical. No? It's about business case, it's about analyzing the route, analyzing the demand, and taking decisions based on that.
I would maybe add on that and just split it a little bit, because I think use cases are everywhere. So we are seeing use cases for everything. Whatever kind of diameters and size you will build up with a Hyperloop, we will find a use case to bring it in. If there's a business case behind, that's then the second question. Because I think even if it might be technology-wise fantastic to transport a full 24 or 40-foot container in a Hyperloop, if the price is then going up like that, then we don't have a business case. Then we have a use case, but nobody will use it. And of course, the second part is that so whatever kind of size the tube might be, we will find use cases and hopefully then also the right business case. What I can just say, and let's say our demand would be just use the same boxes that we're having already in place, because then you have the easier equipment. So use the same containers that air freight is maybe using already, use the same standardized boxes that are already available. Because when you're now really setting up with this new transport mode, also a new cargo box mode, whatever it is, might be container, might be ULD, whatever, then we have another challenge for your potential customers. So make it as accessible and as easy to use. And I think then there will also be, after the use case, also the business case to really make that work. And also this, let's say, how to bring cargo in the tube and out of the tube. So where are the fixing points and what is exactly this handling topic? That's still unclear. And maybe last point to that, because still we are struggling, what kind of regulations do we have there? Is it more air freight? Is it more rail? Is it land? Is it ocean? So if it would be handled like an air freight topic and we have to use X-ray scan for everything we are bringing in, then it will also be destroy the one or other business case.
I saw Lucienne and then Carlo.
Just to add one thing, because the business case obviously extremely important, but also we are talking about infrastructure. So we need to get one level higher from a systemic point of view. What is the optimized standardization or the diameter level? And that would make sense for all of Europe. And that's for what kind of cargo? And if it's for containers or parcels or something in between, that's a real issue.
Carlo?
Yeah, in the same line, I think the business model is the fundamental driver here that we need to be sure that is the correct one. And I have always doubts that it will work only with one type of business model, so only cargo or only passenger. For me, it should be, maybe we can start with the cargo model, because clearly whatever happens is there are much less risk associated with any type of activities. The second is also the acceptance of the infrastructure. So it's not only, as you said, there's a question of infrastructure that is going together, the business model, the cost associated to it. I don't think there is a clear answer. I personally imagining to have the tube or the dimension for a ship container or a sea container, I think it implies a lot of engineering, especially when I hear the colleague that was presenting before all the question of pump, water, dust, so if I put the dimension. So these are all elements that need to be taken into account. What I'm a bit concerned, and that clearly is really a question, so I'm not saying, is that we need to be also careful that whatever will be succeeding first to show the example, because maybe done in a short distance, something like this, not that doesn't become a boomerang effect, because let's say if it's possible to build a short tube, 20 kilometers, some example in my head, okay, that you do, but we need also to be careful that this maybe is not the full example of the future system, but maybe is a demonstration that is working. So this, I think, we need to keep in mind that the expectation here is to go towards a integrated new transportation mode. And these imply to be able to serve different type of business models and maximize the return on investment. That will be quite important. And it goes back to justify why we need to build a new infrastructure. And we have all the elements. I think you have presented today all the elements today, and there is a extreme need now, because I think we will face, and what happened in the United States will come faster. Also here, that we can imagine is the fact that we have really an issue about the supply chain, on the logistic value chain, and all these type of things. We see in all the modes of transport is coming. So we have really a need, and we need to be sure that we carefully, as you said, look at which is the business model that we need to capture and which type of service we want to do.
Pierre and Alix, do you want to add anything, or do you say everything has been said, just not from me?
Yeah, I mean, a lot has been said, so I don't want to repeat. I think we absolutely need to develop the technology to protect for both. I do agree with you that it doesn't have to be the same product doing a container that doing a palletized or ULD, right? It could be two different products. However, the technology that we will develop needs to keep it in mind. That it needs to be able to carry containers, right? So whether maybe the first product we put out is not something that carries containers, as long as the technology here to protect it, the next version of the product can, right? Or maybe the first, based on customer needs, the first product is going to be a container product, right? I said that the customer needs will dictate this, and as long as our technology protects for it, we'll be aligned and ready.
It was the first for self-driving cars. It was the trucks, not the passenger cars, or was it?
No, I'd like to say some things about the business case. No? First of all the analysis that we have been doing during the last 2 years demonstrate that there is a business case also for the hyperport scenario competing with the cost of truck. Okay? And in the same circumstances, taking in consideration, that the rail infrastructure is subsidized, also is capable to compete with the rail. Okay, so it's not just about the user case; it's, as you were saying very well, it's business case. But I would like to say also other thing. We have to think that the world is changing. Zara, that is one of the biggest retailers in the world, Inditex Group, moves 50% of their goods from China to Europe by plane. 50%. And you say, how is possible when the cost is 10 times more? Because at the end, there is a CFO, sitting down in a place that say, I don't want to have inventory. Yeah, I will pay a little bit more, but I don't want to have inventory, okay? So, and because also they need to change to the demand, and if they want to change their collections every 2 weeks, they need to do that. So, speed, reliability, and a cost-effective solution, is what we need, okay? So I think that we've got a lot of room to be successful in the freight areas, with containers in some cases, without containers in other cases, with no mixed use, but there's a lot of opportunities of improvement of the actual business situation of the supply chain.
Mm-hmm. Alix?
Yeah, just to complete, so I fully agree we need standardization and use the standard we have, pallets, container, it depends. The second point is we need to look at intermodality too, which means that we need to be sure that the link between Hyperloop, road, rail, or whatever will be think in advance. Because everybody say, okay, I don't want the trucks on the road, I want it on the train, I want it whatever solution. But then at the end you say, okay, if you don't want the trucks on the road, we need to load it somewhere. And then everybody said, please load it near to my neighbor, not near to me. So that's the simple fact. But really, we need to look at this transition, because Hyperloop will not go everywhere, which means that we have to make the link, and this link needs to be think in advance.
Mm-hmm. We heard it a lot today. Well, you just mentioned it's kind of like globalization pushes us to think differently, to live in this VUCA world or in this whitewater world where we actually have to adjust really fast because everything is real time. When we're saying fast, and I learned a lot today about this industry, and I'm thinking, when is that happening? When is the first commercial out there? So this glass bowl, I want to go back to this. And Lucienne, I do remember that we talked about that. When is the future? When is there the first Hyperloop that I can use so that I don't have to go on a train for 7 hours to Amsterdam and don't have to use the plane?
Really good question. Many answers are possible. And we asked the same question to the Hyperloop companies or the Hyperloop promoters, the industry, governments, financial companies, some customers even. And then you see, yesterday, that's one of the answers. We need it yesterday, but you need some time to develop it and to implement it. Regulation and standardization also need some time to put everything in place. But in the end, we came up with a very nice timeline. 2030, 3,000 kilometers implemented, so operational, showing the business case.
2030?
In Europe. Problems are big enough. You want to have the impact over here. We have the customer here who wants it yesterday. So I would say 2030 operational, 3,000 kilometers, 2040, 40,000 kilometers.
30,000 kilometers.
3,000 in 2030.
3,000
Yeah.
kilometers in operation.
Operational.
How long is Berlin to Amsterdam?
I don't care.
People
let's
or cargo,
start
yeah.
with something.
And you would start with cargo.
From a technical point of view, let's start with cargo.
Because the safety measures are less.
Well, yeah, flowers don't die. Or at least it's less.
They do, but
yeah.
the banana is already smashed.
That would be great. Let's come back in 8 years and see if your assumption was correct.
We have a deal.
We have probably a deal. We would use it. So if it's available, if it's there, of course.
Yeah. Oktoberfest 2030.
Oktoberfest 2030, you heard that. Erik, working since 20 years for DB Schenker, and I learned that your whole family was in cargo, in transportation. So is 2030 for you realistic after you have seen this industry from your grandfather, how things are evolving and how fast things are?
Yeah, still, 2030 is 8 years to go. It's a long timeline. And, but nevertheless, if the assumption is that at 2030 we would really have this 3,000 kilometer, I would assume that some hundreds of kilometers might be there already earlier. And of course, would be awesome to really use that.
It would be awesome.
I'm struggling with your idea. So I love the idea that cargo first, but still, let's say my crystal ball tells me maybe people first. Because again, I would guess that people are more willing to pay for more speed than cargo, because even with the truck, we are in 48 hours in whole Europe, everywhere. Of course, running out of truck drivers and capacity.
Yeah, you said
but
it.
nevertheless, my assumption, my crystal ball tells me the first Hyperloop might be in use for people, but I would hope it would be the other way around.
Andrés, you look like you want to add something, but...
No, I think that, knowing when we are going to have all that kilometers, is a crystal ball, okay? But what we know is that the most important thing today, I think, is that at least we are talking about when. We are not talking about if. I think that everybody understands that this is going to happen.
So it's the catch-up effect.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen sooner or later. It's going to depend a lot on the infrastructure world and the infra funds of the world, the infra companies of the world, understanding the potentiality of this. And of course, the most important thing is we need a system that demonstrates that the Hyperloop works every day, is reliable, is safe,
safety,
and has a economical viability. And for that, we need I don't like to call it proof of concept. I prefer to call it commercial prototype. Okay. And hopefully Italy will be the first one, or others that are also thinking about this around the world.
I saw earlier a minimal viable, instead of minimal viable product, you would call it minimal viable route.
A question as well, because when this 3,000 kilometer, in which country first?
You're based in Frankfurt, right?
Did you say Mexico?
Correct.
We start with Frankfurt.
Frankfurt? Okay. And we didn't... Okay. Any stakeholders who want to add to that? No, they don't. They might add something with the beers. Lucienne, but you said 2030. We already heard what is needed. You and your InnoEnergy invested in 2 startups, 3 now. So last year was 2. Now you already had the 3rd one. So you have a bit of a glass ball and seeing where those companies are leading to. You are investing. Your company is investing. So can we also talk about the energy? We heard it's 10 times more efficient than aviation. But where is that coming from? And I saw the demo. There are a lot of solar panels on it, but would that be enough?
Okay, I'll start, and probably there are 2 more people who want to answer it. It depends a bit, of course, of the technology that you choose. Our goal is completely decarbonized. So that means the energy that you need to generate it alongside the tubes. And if you do the calculations, it is adding up.
It is adding up, and in the energy you need, depending on how long and how fast?
Well, how fast you go, so the losses that you have, the acceleration, some losses during the tube. You need some energy for cooling inside of the pod, because, well, there is some heat generation in the pod. So there are some energy, still energy-consuming parts that you need to take care of. But you can generate it locally.
Locally.
And renewable.
Yeah, I mean, I can take a stab at it. Where they're coming from, obviously using electromagnetics and maglev in all degrees of freedom removes drag. There's a little bit of electromagnetic drag, but that increases the efficiency of the pod. Getting on demand function in the pod allows us to really efficiently use them, right? Not move extra dead mass when we don't need to do it. Of course, when we start talking about going higher speed and reducing pressure, I mean, the largest contributor of energy consumption in moving things in high speed is aero drag, right? So of course, when you start reducing aero drag, you get extremely efficient. So yes, I mean, all of these are items that we can use to reduce, to increase the efficiency and reduce the energy consumption wherever the energy comes from. I mean, those systems are electric, right? Where the electricity comes from then becomes a different story, right? Whether it's solar panel, it's wind power, or any source of electricity local from the site, that could be that's actually a different discussion. But the energy consumption and the reduction comes from these various aspects of the technology. I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, I think that you have explained very well.
There is. When we try to sum up, I heard so many challenges. It's very complex, but can I have from each of you a priority? Like, what is the biggest pain point for you in your part of the industry, and who could solve that? Alix, you start. The biggest pain point, and who could solve that?
I think the biggest for the time being is capacity. We are lacking of capacity. And then it's the frequency and the capacity of the tube who make the difference.
Capacity and, what was the second?
It's the tube who will make the difference. What can you load, how many boats you can treat, with which frequency. So really, we need capacity on everybody in Europe, in the world that needs capacity today to transport goods.
And when you put yourself in the shoes of a journalist who is in the audience, who would be the party in the value-added chain who you would address with that and saying, we need to change that?
Well, I think it's a mix between authorities and investor. Authorities, because we need to implement the net, and to do that, we can do it without each authorities. Just because the space is not, we are in a congested place, especially in Europe. So we need them to define that. And then we need investor, and depend of the business case. I know that Andrés always say, I don't need grants, I just need a contract. I heard that at least 3 times today.
Okay.
I don't know his business case, so maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong, I can say. But in the end, we need to build something and to start with something. After that, I'm convinced that we need something which is common between passenger and goods, because we see that on the historical railway. Each of them can't pay for everything. We need both effort to pay the infrastructure.
Andrés, is your biggest pain point the lack of contracts?
No, I think that, yes, of course, but no. No, I think that this answer changed or has changed a lot, and I would like to do a reflection on that. If you'd have asked me this 2 years ago, I'd have told you regulation. We really need to be ready with the regulatory environment, because we are going to advance very fast with the technology and with the product, but we are not going to have regulation. But I think that Europe, especially, you know, DigiMove and also DOT in the United States, they are taking this very, very seriously. If you ask me right now, yeah, well, 70% of my time is going about how do we raise funds, you know, to do this thing happen, okay? And of course, that's the biggest challenge, you know? And it's the biggest challenge for a very, very simple reason. There is a lot of money in the world for technology. There is a lot of money in the world for infra, but there is not a lot of money in the world for infratech, okay? Because investors are not so willing to take the risk of the technology plus the infrastructure risk, okay? So on that, we need help, okay? But we don't need help with subsidies. What we need is that the financial world take his real responsibility and do what they have to do. Stop talking about ESG, sustainability, blah, 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 blah. Stop greenwashing and really put in the money where we can change the world.
So who would be the target group for the next Hyperloop conference who you would like to invite to listen to that? Is that venture capitalists or?
No, I would like to see the 4 biggest CEOs of the biggest financial institutions of the world sitting down there and explaining to the audience why they are not going to invest millions and millions in something that can change the world.
Thank you. So please write that down, Martin. We have to invite them. I think we have some contacts. I used to be a banker, but I'm not sure if I still have these contacts. Anyways, Pierre, what's your biggest pain point?
Yeah, it's a little bit in line with what Andrés mentioned, but I'd say more on the technical side today, it related to the infrastructure. Developing an infrastructure that's scalable, that is cost efficient. That's, I would say today, that's where we're spending a lot of our time. I mean, I'll keep it short, but that's, there's a lot of other technical aspects. There's a lot of defining what the customer wants and targeting the, like I said earlier, getting the product that makes sense. That's, of course, that's a difficult thing to do, but getting an infrastructure that is scalable is a critical point, I think. And there's many ways to skin that cat today. Zooming in on that is I would think is one of the biggest challenges.
Just another question to elaborate on that. In a lot of industries, we are lacking skilled labor. Is that the same for you in this really high, specific, specialized engineering? Is it hard for you to find engineers who help you to solve these problems? And where would you search them?
Yeah, not just infrastructure. I mean, that is a challenge just on the design side. But yeah, when you're talking about a very multidisciplinary system, right? A Hyperloop, you have structural, you got electromagnetics, you have control system, power electronics, electrical. I mean, pretty much you cover aerodynamics. You cover everything. So yes, it's definitely a challenge in finding talents in all these various disciplines. Absolutely.
And if you could have a wish, how would you address them? How would you try to...
On the talent piece?
Yeah, because there might be some talents out there, and we are recording.
Yeah, look at my job posting, and please contact me if you're interested in any other job for Hyperloop. It's we're awesome to work with, so yeah, please don't hesitate.
We have to solve that problem
Absolutely.
of lack of skilled labor, so we have to talk about it and tell them,
exactly.
hey, there are jobs.
Yeah. Yep.
Erik, from your perspective as the VP of Global Innovation at DB Schenker, what is your biggest pain point and who could solve it?
Availability. Make it happen, please.
Who has to make it happen?
I think all of you.
This guy.
We are not an infrastructure, we are not, somehow we are slightly investor, but maybe not that much that is needed for this product and for that service. But really, availability, of course, must be safety first. And wherever it is, in which country ever, I think capacity is not an issue at all. Because when the rail track is there, we have enough capacity, we have too much capacity at the moment to use the existing business modes. So therefore, availability is my biggest pain.
Mm-hmm. And now for the enthusiasts of Hyperloops, please close your ears. Is there an alternative you see to Hyperloops? Because you are VP of Innovation, not specific for Hyperloops, but you see Hyperloop has a potential.
It depends on the distances. I would say for the shorter distance, autonomous driving with autonomous trucks, of course, they are coming. And for certain cases, there might be a substitute. But it depends really on how much volume we are talking about. But for some topics, that might be a substitute. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Lucienne, what's your biggest pain point? and who could solve it?
Related to Hyperloop, you mean, huh?
Yes, yes, related to Hyperloop. Yeah, I know one pain point is that we can't surf in Berlin, but I will give you a contact to the surfing hall where I'm happy to go with you.
We'll make it happen. Hyperloop. I think the biggest pain point for the Hyperloop is what will really be the game changer, and that's the first, I always call it a corridor or track where you can prove everything is functioning, there is a business case, no need to be afraid of something happen, solve your problems. The moment you have that part, then it will run. Like I think Dieter or Marcus from Deutsche Bahn normally says, well, the moment you show there's a business case, that the payback time is below 20 years for infrastructure, people are lining up to pay for it.
Thank you. And Carlo?
I would like to be a bit provocative, but I think we need to be, sometimes I see too much marketing, too few progress, and I need to say it. I want that, I think you said, make it happen. Okay, make it happen is that, I go back to the presentation I followed in the afternoon about the question of the vacuum and so on and so on. There are plenty of questions, and we need to answer them. And we strongly believe that this can be a major solution, energy savings, not only it can create new capacity, it can change the way. Think about the capacity could be of transporting goods from China to Europe without polluting the sea all the time. And I can go ahead. But we need to start to bring answers. And it's tough, because it's not simple. 2030, if we don't make a major change, it will not happen. Simple like this. Acquisition of land, permission, environmental studies. This is a reality, it's not nothing that, okay? So I think we need to really look at, okay, which are the focus area into which we need to work together and address the engineering aspects and bring it to life. And bring into life what we said, to find a business model that is answering the correct business model. This will be really what I think we should commit as a believer in Hyperloop and support the promoters, all the promoters, in achieving in the next, I think, 2 to 5 years to be able to have something in 2030.
Thank you. I have a closing question, and that's a bit provocative and maybe not. You are all from different countries. So I think we have 2 French, but you represent America now, since you're living there since 20 years. Another glass ball question: which country? Where do you think is the first route? Felix. Knowing the industry and where the development's happening and the investments, where is the first route?
Oh, I think...
Can be a short answer.
I will give you a European answer. We need 6 to cross from Belgium to Italy, from Poland to Germany. You choose. You have choose the main corridor in Europe, and choose one of them and build it. Whatever, we will use it.
It's not a real clear answer, but...
If you prefer, choose France, of course. Okay. That's what you wanted.
If that's realistic, I take it. If that's more political, I'm not sure if I want to. Take that. Andrés, you worked in a lot of countries, and yes, you are in Spain, but.
I guess that all of us were expecting and hoping, that the first line is going to happen in Italy, because we have a clear map, a clear project, and hopefully that will be the first 10 kilometers of Hyperloop to be built in the European territory. But I think that even more important than that is where do we see that there is a lot of potential for Hyperloop. And I think that there is a lot of potential for Hyperloop in all the countries that has not developed high-speed rail, that's clear. And of course, also in Europe for the long distance. But like a CEO of a big rail company told me, if you solve the problem with the long distance, the people will take also for the short distance. They will prefer to be in half an hour and not in 2 hours in 500 kilometers. So anyway, but I think that there is a lot of potential also in US, but it's difficult because they need to change the mentality. Okay. And there is a lot of potential, of course, in the Middle East, but it's also difficult because they don't have the experience that has Europe. No? So we hope that will be Italy.
Okay, Italy. Yeah. Your glass bowl?
Yeah, I'll go with Italy too. I mean, no one has a crystal ball, but it's the next one coming up. I don't know. Let's say Italy, but the reality is I think that the whole technology and the whole product is completely country agnostic. It can go anywhere. So we'll be ready for whatever comes. Italy is coming next. We'll be ready to tackle this, and then and we'll see.
That was also very politically correct. Okay.
What do you expect?
Erik, do you want to be blunt German?
Probably yes, maybe stop over in Frankfurt. But if there would be something in Europe, I would love to have cross-border. So it somehow should be somewhere a cross-border check. So minimum 2 countries might be connected, because then we are really adding value. But my crystal ball tells me India. So I think many investments are going also to India, and I would guess that also DP World and other companies investing a lot in India, and I would guess that might be the first track.
Oh, maybe I would be one of the first one experiencing in India a Hyperloop. Let's see. Yes, we talked about that at another workshop, and I saw a map where the potentials are, and there was a lot in South India, which I was not expecting. But you're right, there is a white canvas, so where there is no railway. There are also people from Brazil in the audience. They also told me there's a huge potential because there are not that many trains. Lucienne, glass bowl.
Yeah, what to add? I'm European, so I love to see it in Europe.
Me too.
Cross country.
Yeah, but that's what you prefer. But what is realistic, knowing the people, the circumstances, the infrastructure, and the regulations?
If you can do it in Europe, we can do it everywhere.
See, now we have a quote from you, Carlo. Very, I think that's a very, hang on, I have to check the time. That's a very good closing answer. My goodness. Thank you so much for that. Is there anybody in the audience who has another question, which we can obviously also address with beers? Otherwise, thank you. Oh, hang on, come on. We have one. May I ask for the microphone? Or is that working?
Is it working? No. Nope.
Fernando, is that? I take, well, faster.
Well, maybe a question for over the beers. What we saw today is some people say this should be a sort of disruptor. We go from 0 to a full Hyperloop. Another company said we'll have some intermediate steps with a linear motor along a normal track, and we start experimenting. I was wondering what your views are, because that's quite a different approach, and you have to take either one or the other route, I think.
I think it's tapping onto this country, because the country question, because if you have in India you go from 0 to full, and in Europe
we have different business model, and we need to accept them. There is the Canadian project in which they have agreed the 5 kilometers from Calgary airport to somewhere in the 5 kilometer away, and if it works, it can be extended in a real operational test. It doesn't exclude to have a full project like Andrés, you were saying, in Italy now, in the north of Italy. So I think there is not a specific recipe. It's a question that I think we should really try to keep this in Europe. Now, following what Lucienne you said, the European approach will be really the due payback of the investment that is being done by all the colleagues working in this.
Thank you. Anybody else? Otherwise, Mehmet has a question.
Not a question.
Comment.
Answer.
Oh, an answer.
Which country? Which country?
He says Turkey. He says Turkey is the first country.
You were asking which country? Probably Turkey. I would tell about last month we had a competition. Hyperloop development competition. Actually, Elon Musk has been doing this for years, and after that, European Hyperloop Week, last 2 years. And a month ago, we had Hyperloop development competition. 37 universities in Turkey studying, working on Hyperloop. They had 16 teams. So they levitated, they speeded up, they put brake on the communicator. So 4 of them put into the Hyperloop tunnel. We built, as RGS, we built the tunnel and the vacuum. So it is there, the longest, I can say, competition tunnel of Europe is in Turkey. So I'm telling that anywhere, everywhere, this ecosystem is developing, and I'm giving some lectures and to the students, telling them that now you are not watching the history, you are writing the history. So now we all here, not watching the history, we all writing the history. So big applause to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to say thank you to our panel. Thank you for your insights.